Shakalaka bam, we are live. We are live. And we are engaging in the share around segment of the stream. So bear with us, folks. You'll see we have a full frame of smiling faces. And you'll get to hear from all of them here momentarily. Here it is. Larry, feel free to share this to your Facebook page if you would copy the link off the American Blood Trackers or whatever. If you want to share it to your Facebook page or your tracking page if you have one. Hi, Frank. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Get into some groups here.
Oh, are you kidding me?
What's the matter?
I forgot to. Oh, I shared it twice. Never mind. Oh, well.
Who shared it twice? I did?
No, I did.
Oh,
I
that's
did.
all right.
I actually hit it. That's all right. I can go back into it.
That's all right. Okay. Yeah. All right. You got the national stuff. I got the Michigan stuff. All right. Ready for the music to play?
Let's do it.
That's what I say. Let's do it. And here we are, folks, loyal followers and potential newcomers. Thank you for tuning in to the ABTA Tuesday Night Live. We are joined today. We have Lyle Avis. In my screen, he's the upper right, orange shirt, pretty face. The lower left is Larry Beckom. Today's topic, guys, we're talking about trusting your dog. And a lot of fun discussion around that. We've all been there. We all struggle with it. Even the most seasoned guys still struggle with trusting your dogs today. But before we get into the heart of the topic, we're going to let the ABTA's own Lyle Avis talk to us about the Alabama event as the Alabama coordinator. Lyle, tell us about it, bro.
Yeah, so we've got, what do we got? We're at like 11 days right now, I think, is our countdown, right? So
Yep.
A quick rundown of our schedule, right? So technically the event is running from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? So it's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. It is the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with the main seminar being on Saturday. So if you are scheduled to do some testing or plan to do some testing, get that logged in, get it set up, and those tests are primarily going to be on Friday and Sunday. With our big, really the seminar, the hangout, the classes, and the hands-on stuff will all be that Saturday. So just to give you guys an idea, we'll run down the old schedule. So at 9:30 when you guys pull in, it's kind of our get there about 9:30. Sign into the registration the table, we're going to have Josie will be there. So Josie will be there signing people in, welcoming you. She's going to be our Walmart greeter for the event. You get logged in there, and then at 9:45, we'll do welcome instructions, kind of introduce you, introduce all the people who are working the event, some judges that you might have met or haven't met before. Then right at 10 o'clock is when we start. First up is me taking over one of Kenny's favorite classes. So I'll be walking us through kind of the science of scent, and we'll be right there at the pavilion for that one. We're going to do some visual demonstrations of kind of how scent works, how scent drifts. If you've ever been there before, you know that there's a big open field right there. So we should be able to get a really good view of how that scent drifts through. In the morning, and then we'll come back in the afternoon and we'll hit it again and be able to kind of see the difference in those two. We'll talk a little bit about thermals and how scent kind of really works. I'm sure we'll touch on some of Kenny's topics about his pheromones and how he likes to go super in the weeds on that, but I'll steal some of his information and put it out to you guys, those who haven't heard it. After that, we're going to break off to some hands-on stuff. So Ethan Young will be, he'll be there from Hunt Dog, and we're going to work on some scent drills. I think right now the plan is we'll probably have 4 or 5 different drills set up to kind of show people, like, hey, it doesn't always have to be a full 800, 1,200 yard mock track every time you train, right? If you've got 30 minutes, you've got 40 minutes, an hour, you can still get some training in, and you can still throw some challenges at your dog, whether that's in addition to or in place of a full track that week. We'll throw some skills with those scent drills that we have there. That's going to take us to lunch, and then we've got some raffle items set up for lunch. Billy, if you've been there before, Billy will be out there frying us up some fish like last time. I think John Vaughn's there helping him catch it right now, isn't he, Kenny?
He is. He's been there since last Friday, and they have caught a bunch from what I'm hearing.
So they're there, so everything will be super
Nice.
fresh on that. Let's see. We'll do some raffles. Like I said, we've got some items sent in from several different vendors, and if you are a member and you're on our members benefits page, you can see most of those by going to the members benefit page. Sweet plug there.
Yep.
And then after lunch, we'll go into mock test lines. So this is kind of something that we haven't really done before. We've got a lot of people asking about how the tests work. You know, have never taken a test. They're maybe nervous about a test. And then even on our own sidebar, I know some of the testing people have developed another, like almost like a walkthrough type test. So this is going to be kind of the same thing, but a little bit, I don't necessarily want to call it dumbed down, but a little downplayed. So we'll take all the groups and you'll have your dog and you'll go out there and there'll be several short lines. And then some judges are going to walk you through and basically do an abbreviated version of what that actual test is going to look like. So they'll walk you through, you know, your hunter interview, your hit site analysis piece right there, what kind of answers we're looking for. And then you'll run the dog. The judge will watch you. And then at the end, you'll get the same kind of feedback from the judge that you would at a test, right? So maybe we'll knock some nerves off of people. They won't be so nervous in the future and want to take a test because they've already done the mini version, right? They know. And then not just that, but if you're super new and really nervous about tests, you're going to get some feedback from judges, you know, telling you, hey, this is what I saw, or I really liked how you did this, or tried this, you know, some little techniques that will kind of go around for, I mean, really for anybody at all levels of, you know, experience tracking. So I think that one's going to be super fun. Like I said, that's the first time we've ever really done one like that. Then after that, we go to old reliable hit site analysis class. I'm sorry. So the mock test lines, you're going to have me, Landon Manning, and Coda Stewart running those. So you'll have those 3 different judges. So you got a variety of people who track a little different, pretty close to the same kind of styles, but everybody has their own little unique twists on things. And then we'll go into hit site analysis, which will be broke down into 2 groups. It'll be me and Charlie Webb. And we'll go through, walk you through those. And at those hit sites, we'll have the little scenario set up, right? You'll come up. Me or Charlie will act as the hunter and tell the group, hey, this is what the deer did. Here's what I saw. And then you'll get a chance to look around to the ground and check the ground, and there'll be specific hair to what kind of shot we think it is. The blood splatter pattern may be different on the ground. There may be some intestinal matter, stomach matter on the ground that will give us clues, or bone chunks, all the things that we normally would look for at a hit site to kind of paint that picture. So you'll take some time as a group to look and discuss, kind of come up with your plan. Hey, this is how I would attack this track. This is what I would do. Here's what I think would happen. Me and Charlie will kind of give you our opinions, again, because they're opinions, because everybody's going to do it a little different, and there's not a lot of wrong or right answers. So you'll get those opinions, and we'll all talk together, and you'll have, I think we're going to have 5 or 6 different one of those stations. So we'll be broke up, and then we'll all come back together under the pavilion and get a chance to talk about that a little more in depth, and just hear people's differing opinions, which is always fun to hear how somebody would do something different. Like Kenny wants to wait 3 days. Me and Alan Barrett want to dump the box right now, right? So everybody gets a little bit of different.
Definitely
opinion.
not 3 days.
Yeah.
I don't want to go 3 miles.
Well, Alan will just pick us up on the other end, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a couple more on there. So then about 3:30 or so is how I have it scheduled. Is Ralph Bennett going to talk us through some what would you do? And it's kind of like the shot side or hit side analysis, right? So we'll be presented with some scenarios and some discussion, and it's just usually a good time to hear other people's opinions, which you can sometimes be like, man, I never thought about, that, or what your success rates are based on your opinions of your actions that you take in that. And then our last class of the day, or last group of the day, is a breeder's corner. All right, I'm kind of fond of this woman, so Christine Avis will be talking us through that, and that's basically not necessarily just for people who are curious about wanting to breed their own dogs, but she's basically going to walk you through the process of, hey, this is what we do from selecting a matching pair or a breeding pair, through what's to be expected as they go along that pregnancy, when you would go to the hospital, or when you go to the vet, get your x-rays or ultrasounds, kind of supplies you would need. And then that stuff kind of sets to the side, and then we talk about what that breeder is doing, or what a good breeder would be doing with those dogs to set them up for success. So that portion kind of turns into, as you're looking for your next dog, or you're looking to breed yourself, kind of gives you some clues like, hey, here's some questions that I should be asking my breeder. Or if I'm not sure about this breeder, you can ask, hey, do you do early neurological stimulation? And that might give you some clues as to whether he's the guy for you, or that's the dog you want to buy. Last thing of the day, we'll complete everything out, hit that last raffle. We got a bunch of leashes and hats and shirts and gift bags, all kinds of stuff to raffle off. And that should round us out for the day. And then we'll go back to judges laying test lines in the evening for the next day, for Sunday. So,
yeah. So also a couple things to touch on. We do have the new introductory evaluation that people can sign up for, and the documents will be coming out in the next couple of days with that. But basically, if you have a new dog, or you're a new handler with a new dog, and you want to see where you're at, you can sign up with that, and the judge will help you establish a baseline and teach you how to lay a line based off of that baseline, and kind of give you some tips on what to work on to advance to the next level. So that's something new rolling out.
I really like that. It's like a personal coaching moment. I get a lot of people that always ask, or they don't want to test, or they don't know what questions to ask. But if you could get a judge or somebody with some experience to walk you through that whole process, I mean, it really kind of.
And the awesome thing about that is it's zero pressure. You don't have the pressure of a test. It's just an initial assessment of your dog. And so you know kind of where you're at, a benchmark, and a plan forward. I think it's really good. And Kenny, you proof of concepted it here a couple of weeks ago, and it's good. I think it's really great.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, and actually, Larry got to see kind of the back end of it, where John and I had already done the first part of it, which is the 150 to 200 yard with 190-degree turn, 50 yards of blood, and then no blood. So we'd already done that with Jeff. We'd already came back and we kind of reviewed everything, discussed some things for him to work on, and then we laid a line with him. We let him lay the line, showed him how, and Larry got to tag along and see the results. And I am going to be posting this video later this week, but Jeff could not successfully complete the full. Jeff and his dog could not successfully complete without help the full 150-yard trail. But Larry will tell you, what did you think of that next trail that was almost 400 yards long?
The one with Jeff?
Yes.
I was pretty impressed, especially with the dog. I've never done that. You'd have to show the video, but I would have thought that dog had at least been at Kenny's for a week or two.
Yeah, and that literally, this dog and handler had never tracked before, never been on a mock track. And like I said, the very first trail, it could not complete it. And then they did very, very well on the next that was about almost 400 yards long at basically 2 hours old, hour and a half, 2 hours old, with 290-degree turns, basically a started level test line. And the dog and handler both did great. So just a little bit of coaching like that and the difference it made.
Yeah. And I did see the video, although I wasn't lucky enough to be there like Larry was, but I saw the video, and it's legit, man. And it's a great training tool, and as well as Larry's line that we're not going to reveal, but we've hinted to multiple times on lives. Even Larry's validation day that we're going to talk about here tonight as the core topic. There's some great training opportunities and seminar material there, and to me it's just exciting.
So I tell you, it was beneficial for me too to walk behind, and John kind of talked me through some things, what the dog was doing, what the handler was doing wrong, and so that was beneficial just to trail behind and have somebody tell me what was happening.
Yeah, for sure. So Lyle, run those dates by us again for Alabama.
Okay, so make sure I don't lie to you, because I got it wrong the first time and probably messed everybody up. So the first testing is on Friday the 1st. Golly, my testing or my calendar on here is all messed up. The 2nd is Friday.
Lyle? Are you looking at it on that?
Shuffled everybody around.
Are you using an Apple product to review that calendar? Is that it?
Listen, I've got
a Mac. I know.
I've got a MacBook plugged into a Walmart screen with my phone sitting on top of it all. All right. Deal with me. Yeah. So Friday is testing, the 2nd. So if you guys signed up for testing, you'll be there potentially Friday for that test. Saturday at 9:30, the 3rd, is when everybody will come together, get registered, and classes will start about 9:45. And then Sunday, the 4th, will be the last day of testing as people, hit the road back to home.
Cool.
So you can only make one day. The 3rd is the day to be there.
You sure it's the
day
3rd?
To be there?
I'm going to say 87.5% chance the 3rd is the actual day.
Okay. So, and it's not too late to register for the Alabama event. You can go on to
that's a good point. You caught me slacking. So if you register before Friday, you will receive additional raffle tickets for your entry when you get there. If you register day of, you're going to get one raffle ticket. You'll be able to buy more. But if you pre-register before Friday, which I'm pretty sure is the 25th, you're going to get additional raffle tickets.
I'll check my Android calendar and verify that date for you.
You're the reason why my bubbles aren't blue.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
And then there's been several that signed up super early that we're going to go ahead and throw in ABTA hats for those guys just to appreciate how much we appreciate them signing up early. Right. So if you sign up early, I can plan timelines. I can plan judges.
Yes.
I can plan so much better if you can get signed up early. Otherwise, Bobby might have been catching all that fish for no reason, or he might have not caught enough fish. And we have to put John back to work right out there at the catfish pond.
Yep.
So
Caleb Judah asked, do we need to register for just Saturday?
Yes. You're gonna, if you don't pre-register, you can register day of for Saturday, but that pre-register for the event will give you that extra ticket if you get an extra raffle ticket if you can get pre-registered before Friday.
And again, it does help with pre-planning for food and everything.
Planning purposes is the killer. I get it though. So I mean, sometimes you don't know and you're trying. Maybe you got to work. That's fine. We still want you to come out. You know, you can pay and register at the event, but pre-register is super helpful for planning purposes.
Yep. But to be clear, there is not a special registration for only Saturday. If you register, you're registering for the weekend, even if you're only attending for Saturday. So Judah, Caleb, I'm not sure if that was the root of your question. That's how I interpreted it, but
that registration is for Saturday. The only reason you're gonna be there on Friday or Sunday is if you're testing, or you just want to hang out. I'll hang out with you for free.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
All right.
Well, good stuff.
I'm going to abandon you, but before I abandon you, I'm going to remind people that the members benefits page, I saw it. Kenny's got it up and running. So if you're a member and you can log in, you can go on there and see all the member benefits, all these companies that we've reached out to and pulled in that are providing discounts. So just a few of them that you see on there, right? So you got Conkeys is on there. They're providing a discount. Dan's provides us a discount. So if you buy dogs from Schmavis, let's see who else. There was from ZBZ from Alex Hood, or you get training from Hunt Dog. You get training from Mullins Dog Training, and then Light Boots is offering a discount. And then if you listen to, I think it's the One Track Mind podcast, they talked about pet insurance, right? So Spot Pet Insurance that they talked about is also a sponsor of ours. So Spot Pet Insurance is offering a 20% discount off of your monthly premiums when you register if you're an ABTA member. So
Yep. Cool.
Be a member.
And that banner. Go ahead, Lyle.
I said, you say, be a member, use the benefits. Let's make it something good, you know?
There you go. And that banner that you see while the music's playing on the intro after the share around segment, those are the folks that have partnered with us. And I will tell you, that is really all of the work of Lyle Avis. Lyle worked his tail off and did just a great job. So credit where credit is due of assembling most of those partners. So well done, buddy.
And then I for real this time, I'm going to hang up on you. The last thing I have is I'm trying to put together a roadway of signage and posters and all the stuff from all the track and people that are around there. So if you have a poster or a sign, something you like to take pictures of, a billboard, banner, whatever, bring it with you. We're going to hang them all up, take some super cool pictures of everybody's stuff all down the road right there. Find me on Saturday. I'll get your poster or your billboard, banner hung up, and we can take pictures in front of it. Meet your buddies, tell them how great your poster, banner, whatever it is.
That's cool.
We'll have a good time.
Yeah, I've got a couple I need to get to you also that Dog Track sent us.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So,
cool.
All right, for real this time. I'm hanging up. I'll be listening.
Thanks, Lyle.
Yep, we'll see you later.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
Yeah.
So before we get on to the heart of the show, you know, on the topic of events. So Lyle just talked about Alabama. After Alabama, the end of May 30th, June 1 is Pennsylvania. We've talked about it last week. That is still open for registrations. There's a lot of good work planning going on there. So Pennsylvania is coming up next. Then after Pennsylvania, late June, June 28th is the Michigan event. Then September is the Iowa event. Those are the events, the ABTA events currently on the calendar. All of them are open to registration. Just like we talked about, we encourage and appreciate early registration so we can plan accordingly. And we hope to see you there, guys. So questions about any of them, visit the website, AmericanBloodRackers.org, or give us a shout. We'll share information for you. So there's the commercial, man. So fun topic tonight that I suspect could spark some pretty fun and engaging viewer comments and questions when we talk about trusting the dog. And we have all been there, and some of us are still there to some degree. And I know there are a lot of newer handlers that watch and listen to the streams, and I've had very, very direct I don't want to say direct, but specific conversations with several here in my home state, new tracking friends of mine, about trusting the dog. And so if I frame tonight's or let Larry's participation. Larry, how long have you been tracking? And I know Kenny's going to ask a lot of questions, but how long have you been engaged in the tracking world? Let me put it that way.
This will be my first year. So just sometime at the end of last year is when I'll take it back a step further. When I got Bo's the bloodhound, I had interest in tracking, but I got him right around the time my house burned. So some things kind of drug my feet, and he got a little older, but towards the end of last year, I got some time, and that's when I found Kenny. So got him out there, Kenny's at the end of last year. So this will really be my first year.
Okay, but I don't want to get the cart too far ahead of the horse, and derail Kenny's questions. But again, to frame it, you took Bo to Kenny for training.
Yes,
right? You got, this is real high level. You got Bo back. You did some tracking. You did some work. You had some concerns about it. You and Kenny had a conversation, and you went back to Kenny for what I'll call a validation day. That's just what I keep talking about. And we talked about some of that video that we've seen, and that really, there was something that was said at some point recently that made me think trusting the dog is a great topic of conversation. So that's when I reached out to you, told Kenny, hey, we're doing a Trust the Dog segment, and here we go. So that's kind of how this came about. And there's a lot of ways this could go, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation from another person's perspective. Like I said, I dub myself a moderately experienced tracker. We get better every year. My dog gets better every year. I trust her more and more every day throughout the season. But it should be a fun conversation. So Kenny, I'm going to turn over to you from here, buddy.
Real quick, Kenny, before you get started, I will add that I don't want it to be thought. I hope Kenny don't think this. I never doubted the training of the dog. No. I think from the get-go, I thought it was. I knew I was screwing up. So
yeah. So why don't you just start off by telling kind of the backstory.
Yeah. So when I got him back, I mean, obviously when I picked him up, John let me run a track. Pretty easy when somebody's sitting there with you. And I got him home. I've been watching you guys every Tuesday, and I'm even I creep some of these guys' Facebook who's got experience and watch their YouTubes and try to learn some things. But didn't have shoes or anything. We were trying to do it with sticks or whatever, and we were doing okay. I felt I got some shoes. I'll say I didn't like them, and then the very next week, I literally watched this, and Kenny's like, "Yeah, I don't like those shoes."
Hang on, and while you're talking, I'm going to grab them. You can go ahead.
But yeah, so I mean, I felt okay. I knew we were making some mistakes. I'd reach out to Kenny here and there. But when I got those shoes, it was just like, man, we are terrible. Just he wasn't picking up on anything, or I felt he wasn't. And then we just have situations like maybe I'd get out at where the track started, and he's got a ton of energy. I don't know how your bloodhound is, but he's got a ton of energy. And I was just getting started too fast. Then there were times, I'm like, oh, he's way off. And I'm just, because I know where it's at, and I'm yanking him back, and he's just shutting down. I'm getting frustrated. And I actually told Kenny I really felt bad, because it's like every time I text him, it was bad news. But it was never that, like I said, I knew the dog was capable, but I'm just so inexperienced. And, looking back, I really probably should have asked a lot more questions, when I went and picked him up. Probably would have saved me a lot of heartache. But
well, you don't know what you don't know,
So I don't know if you want to jump in, Kenny, or you want me to keep going.
Yeah, go ahead. You can keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So, Kenny reached out, Kenny, he reached back to me, gave me some tips. And then, I knew it'd come to this. He's like, I ain't trying to be rude, but everything you're saying sounds like you're screwing up. And I don't think he said it just like that, but I'm like, yeah, I know, but I just need some help. So we get down there, we get to watch Jeff, and John was great through it all too. He immediately was like, oh, the dog, he's got all confidence in dog. He's like, we train that dog, he's good. And so, when I get to go on this, Kenny tells me, my son's with me, and hey, we hang back, they lay the track, we eat lunch, we go back, and we start, and he's like, just trust the dog. And so throughout it all, I'm watching blood. I'm like, okay, we're doing good. The dog stops, and I'm like, here we go.
Like it hit a brick wall.
Yeah. I'm like, here we go. Back to what I knew there was a problem. And he turns and he goes backwards, and I'm like, Kenny's like, what would you do in the woods? I was like, I guess I just follow him. So, he ended up going back, I don't know how, 50 yards or so. He crossed over the ditch. I'm questioning again. I'm like, I just keep following him. He's like, yeah, just keep going. And sure enough, he went straight to the hide. Then I got to go back and watch the video, how they laid the track, which probably let Kenny share that, but that was pretty, I was like, that's telling there. Yeah. I was just watching that blood, and as soon as I lost the blood, I'm like, yeah, we're off.
And I'll kind of tell the story of the line, because it was kind of a mess up. The original intent was we had Jeff wearing the shoes and John with the blood. And actually we did not use real blood for a reason. So anyways, we wanted to try to see if you would steer the dog down the trail where the blood went versus where Jeff veered off of the trail and went on the other side of the ditch. And it just so happened at the point where Jeff veered off, your dog went left before it veered off to pee on a bush. And when it came back over to reacquire the line, it was already past where the turnoff was. So it missed it. But what ended up happening while we were laying the line, Jeff veered off, John went straight, dripping blood. And all of a sudden I realized John forgot to give the hide to Jeff. So although he wasn't dragging
the line.
Yeah, he had it in his hand while laying the line. I'm like, oh shoot. John, throw that over to Jeff. So he did, and he continued to go a little bit further with the blood, and then we stopped, and Jeff continued on, made a 90, went into the woods. And what was eye-opening was, although John wasn't dragging that hide, just carrying that hide, the scent that it put off. and you could see it. And I've already started the video, putting it together. I just got to get time to finish it. And you'll see in the video the dog trails following that line, and he was trailing, no doubt.
Yep.
Where John threw that hide over to Jeff was where he hit a brick wall. His nose came up. He kind of went into a little bit of a search mode, and he immediately turned to reset himself. And, I told Larry, I said, just follow your dog. And I could tell he was I could read his facial expression. Like, see, I knew there was a problem. I was like, just follow your dog. The dog re-engaged itself on the line where Jeff pulled off. And I mean, you've seen the head snap, nose went down, the whole demeanor of the dog changed. He reset himself on that hoof track. And and in fact, Larry kind of looks back at me, and I was like, just follow your dog. If he's wrong, he's wrong.
Yep.
And then you could see the dog was tracking with purpose. It was a whole different demeanor, nose down, just plowing through it, tail up, and then hit where we made the 90, went into the woods. And Larry's like, well, what do I do? I was like, well, what would you do on a real track? He said, follow the dog. I said, well, follow the dog, and went right to the end. So the original intent was not for John to carry that hide, but it was an awesome screw up that it turned out it turned out great.
Yeah, it did. There's a couple points to it that we've talked about several times, and just the power of just dander, and then the true the impact of the pheromone. And I'll just leave it at that, because I don't want to spoil it for I want people to see it at the seminars and stuff and really be able to talk about it in depth, because you really have to see it. In the video was very good. So I think it's great. Thank you, Larry, for providing Kenny the opportunity to screw up and create such a serendipitous learning opportunity for many.
Yeah. So then after that, we went on to another line, and I was like, all right, I'm about to show Larry to trust his dog, that his dog is not wrong. And we get there, and I was like, all right, unclip the lead. He looked at me like, what? Are you serious? Am I gonna go home with my dog or what?
Yeah, I was like, we won't get this dog back. He's gone.
Yeah, what Larry didn't know is we had already done this. We knew. So go ahead. You want to share that, Larry?
Yeah, so we get there, and he's like, oh, we'll start here. And he said I unclip it, and I'm like thinking, I'm like, did he just tell me to take the lead off? And because this dog's got a lot of energy. I'm like, I'll never get him back. He's like, yeah, just take it off. He'll be okay. And I mean, sure enough, we just followed him, and you could tell, I mean, maybe one area there, he kind of circled for a second, and then he was gone. I mean, I don't know how long it took, Kenny, but it wasn't but a few minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't long.
We couldn't keep up. I mean, once he got hard on it, we were trailing him. So,
and he didn't miss. He went right to the end, and he wasn't at the end when we got there, but John was at the end. And the reason he wasn't there is Jeff was through the woods a little bit with his dog, so Bo went to Jeff.
Yeah,
but John was right there, so he put his nose right to the hide, and then wanted to go visit his buddy.
Yep.
So I did that because what better way to trust your dog than to remove yourself from the equation. When you see that your dog runs that trail flawless without you having any influence, what better way to build that trust?
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Going back, Larry, so Kenny just told you when he laid that I'll call it the validation line for you, Jeff had the shoes, Kenny had the camera behind Jeff and John. John was following along, carrying the hide. Okay. So Jeff veers off down through that ditch, laying the line. John goes on spraying that fake blood. So it wasn't a scent. The blood wasn't creating a scent for Bo. It was, it was to deceive you, to see if you'd push your dog down the line based on what you're seeing. And so what were you thinking? And Kenny's right, man. That video is so clear. Bo just bam. He just gets so far, and all of a sudden he just says stop. His head comes up. He turns right around and says, nope, it's back here somewhere. Did you recognize that? And what was going through your mind at the time, Bo's head snapped up like that? Because it was pretty obvious. You had to recognize it because he turned right around.
I honestly, I did. I recognized he was off, but
yeah, okay.
I'm thinking, hey, we're lost. Like there's a problem, and that's a big reason I went down with Kenny is without Kenny, I probably would have just been pulling and yanking and trying to figure it out, but it helped me. It put a little confidence with me. Just, I kind of looked at Kenny and he didn't tell that, like, body language didn't give away, like, hey, Bo's doing the right thing. He's just like, hey, just keep going with him. Just stick with it. So now when we do this, like I've been going out every week. Yeah. I just say, hey, he's right. Like I've even had some friends do some blind stuff, but had I not went down and done that day, we wouldn't be making any progress because every time he did that, I would think he was wrong. He was lost.
Instead of problem solving.
Correct. That's been the pretty impressive thing I've noticed with him lately. Over the weekend, we went right close to 1,000 yards on one and crossed some creeks. And I mean, he hit the creeks with no problem, but even like you can tell when he gets stumped and he just he searches it himself. You don't have to tell him and he figures it out and he gets back where he's going.
Are you able to tell then that there, it took me a while with my dog, and I'm sorry, Kenny, I know you have some
no,
questions.
Go ahead.
It took me a little bit, but I think I'm now fairly confidently able to tell when she's on odor and problem solving a turn or a grid search or the deer, whatever it is, or she's just wandering around looking for scent. She may be moving the same, but just the way she's moving is different. Are you able to see some of that in Bo yet, or?
Yeah, and I actually had something a little new this weekend. I hadn't even told Kenny yet, but we try to do a lot because I'm off 3 days a week, but kids play ball and stuff, so we'll pack a lot into a day. And it's already getting hot down here. I don't know what the weather is like with you guys, but we got towards one of the third trails. We take breaks in between, drink water and stuff, but he went about 700 yards. And some of this too, I let a friend hold him just because I wanted to watch too. But when he hit the road, we crossed the road and we probably left the hide another 40 yards to the right. When he hit the road, he took a left and just started walking like he was going back to the truck. Like he was tired. And literally all we did was, as part of this, like I said, I had another guy carry. Well, I just said, just bring him back. We didn't show him anything. And then he cut off and went exactly where he was going. But it was a different walk. It was a head up and like, I'm tired. And
yep.
And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just the way it looked to me. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm going back to the truck. I'm tired.
Yeah, it happens. And those cues are things you're only going to learn on mock trails, working your dog, even having a dog trained by someone. That stuff you still got to put in some work to read the dog. And you see your dog, obviously left here more than capable. But again, and I sent him home with like some little homework, things to work on. And it was all about it was mainly handler stuff. It had, what types of lines to lay, but the type of lines that were that were instructed to lay was focused on the handler side.
Yeah, and I've even, like I said, I've gotten some friends to come with me, and they're loving watching it too. But a few times I've just said, hey, you take it and you lay it, and don't let me see it. And they take my shoes, and then they're like, man, that is amazing. That dog hit everywhere I walked. Like, and I mean, we've probably bumped it up a little further than Kenny had me outlined to go certain distances, but we've bumped it out a little further. Just because I was like, we hit 1,000 yards the other day, and it was a breeze for him. It wasn't just till the end of the day that he was hot.
Yeah, that's a bloodhound for you.
See, I almost didn't accept the invite, Matt. I knew we were gonna get blood.
I know, but I know. You see what I'm dealing with, Larry. I know. But,
so Matt, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
At what point throughout the progression of your let's just say tracking career did you realize that you could fully trust your dog over your own instincts?
Over my own instincts. Well, I got to tell you that was, so we just finished up our third year. So that's why I say moderately experienced. My first year, I didn't trust her at all, and I paid the price for it. I don't know if I paid any heavier price than any other first year handler because it's pretty common. But our second year, it was much better. I was still on lead. It was much better. But I got to tell you, it was probably halfway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through last season when we were fully off lead, when circumstances allowed it, save for roads or whatever, that it really, really started to come together for us. And, I could see her development, and I could see my development in the trust in her, because there were two very distinct circumstances last year that she made a fool of me because I was not trusting her. And if she would have, and we damn near left 2 deer in the woods, but because of her stubbornness, we recovered both of those deer. And that was like, and one of them was pretty late in the season. It's like, okay, I've got to trust this dog now. And allowing her the freedom, the benefit of off lead is they have that freedom to problem solve and work it out. And that was huge. So, it was half to 3/4 of the way through the season, our third year, before I could get there. But that came from a lot of time behind the dog. I mean, several practice lines and learning the dog, and we went on 86 tracks last year and 51 the year before. So, in my context, that's decent. That's getting some time, but it just takes time, man. But that's my long-winded answer to say, I don't know, halfway to 3/4 of the season last year, Kenny, our third season.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical. And one thing, some may not agree with this, but I don't care if you're in an on-lead state or an off-lead state. I don't know of any state that states that you cannot walk your dog off leash in certain circumstances, certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to learn how to trust your dog. Work your dog on some mock trails off lead. I'm not saying break the law. I'm not saying go track deer off lead, but it will show you a lot. You'll trust your dog a lot more if you can do that.
I totally agree with that, because you really start to understand their problem-solving style and their problem-solving demeanor. Because when you're 30 feet away, you're being dragged behind or following behind, and your focus starts to become, all right, keeping the leash untangled. I'm looking for blood. I'm not watching the dog. You're close to your dog. So sometimes, 30 feet to me is kind of close to your dog, and you can miss some of that stuff. But when you can create that separation and stand in one spot and just observe while your dog is doing what your dog is doing, you really, and I'm going to tell you, Larry, do this, video it, get a camera and video and go back and break down film. It is very, very beneficial. You will see things that you didn't recognize in real time, but just being able to step back and watch that dog do its thing unimpeded by you, maybe it's feeling pressure from you 30 feet behind it when it's off odor, it's huge. And then when you go back on lead, now you can apply that. Okay, and I know how he does it, so you can kind of intertwine yourself or respond accordingly and not be wondering what it's doing. You know what it's doing, and you can help be a better part of the team when you have to be connected by a lead.
Yeah, because some of the biggest mistakes that I see made is people not giving their dog enough room for it to work it out on its own. That is one of the biggest mistakes.
And and patience. Patience is so hard. It takes time. There are scenarios in thermodynamics and deer did this and hunter did that can stack up into some reasonably, I'll say reasonably complex or complicated scent scenarios or scent challenges that the dog just has to work through, and it will. And having the patience to allow that is hard. Trusting the dog and having patience was the hardest thing for me by far as a new handler.
Now, it really gets interesting when you have to learn when not to trust your dog.
Yep.
Because there are times your dog's going to mess up. And I've shared this story time and time again about several times my dogs, we were tracking off lead, and we were on the trail seeing blood pretty much the whole way. Next thing I know, my dogs jump a deer. They ran it, and this is where it got kind of wild. The deer bayed up. It wasn't long, but they had it bayed. They had it stop probably a couple minutes. So I was like, all right, they got it. And of course, we were taking a shortcut to get to them, and all of a sudden it broke. And then it bayed again for just a few seconds and then broke. And so I told the hunter, I said, look, I'm going to call them off, and we're going to go back and look at where it jumped and see what's going on with this deer. And, maybe it's not hit where we thought it was hit. And had I not done that, I'd have left that deer in the woods because the deer was laying dead right there. At the exact point where they jumped the other deer. And I've seen it time and time again. And where a live deer is bedded up next to a dead deer. And I shared another story, a few weeks ago about one that actually ran by us that covered in blood where it was laid up with a wounded deer.
Yep.
So there are times where, we say trust the dog, but there are times where we need to verify it because at the end of the day, they make mistakes too.
Yep. And you've got to know your dog to trust it. I mean, I think a lot of that lack of trust comes from lack of being in tune with the dog. That's what it was for me. I didn't, because, she thinking that she's on a hot line or not being able to tell when she's in odor and out of odor and just, and those demeanors. But yeah, that, trust your dog, but know your dog. And that verifies huge because they have every time you talk about the stories with, dead deer or live deer laying with dead deer, your target deer, that just, I flash back to at least one track that I'm wondering if I screwed up.
Yeah.
Because the deer jumped and we didn't go up there. And that was our first year. That was our preseason. I'll say our pre-first year. That was when I had my German Shepherd when I was trying it. And I think I totally screwed up. I don't know if the deer was there or not. No, now I'm thinking of two. There are two scenarios where I should have went, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's so. And Michael Beck said, make sure you have a great recall before you unhook that lead, which that should happen before you even start tracking training, whether you're tracking on lead or off.
Yep.
So, you know, I kind of share a story of what I feel is a pretty impressive recovery where I had to rely on the dog. I didn't have any choice. I got a call to track a deer in Fargo, Georgia, which is about probably almost 2.5 hours from my house. And I was an hour from my house in the opposite direction. And I told the guy I would come. And I believe it was shot the night before. Yeah, it was shot the night before, if I remember right. And we get, I don't know, 45 minutes away, and the guy calls me and says, "Hey, forget it." And it's like, man, I'm about 3 hours into this drive. And I was like, why do you want to quit? He said, it is raining so hard. He said, I can't see the front of my truck sitting in it. And I was like, well, I've already came this far. I'm coming. We're trying it. And he wasn't kidding. I got there and it had let up a little bit, and we started going down the road into his club, and we stopped right near where he shot it at, and the bottom fell out, and I was pulled up probably 8-10 feet behind his truck, and it was raining so hard I couldn't see his truck.
Oh my gosh.
Well, all I had was a 6-month-old. Yeah, she was 6.5-month-old blackmouth cur, Ladner cur. And I was like, well, this is going to be fun. And so finally the rain let up enough for us to get out and go. And I opened up the dog box, and when we got her to the trail, she took off running. I mean, fast. And I go to her, and she goes in there. I can't remember, 400 or 500 yards. And I see her treat on the Garmin. We get there, she's got the deer. And when I'm telling you, the bottom fell, it was bad. And the guy said it had been raining like that for a while. But even he was going to call it off. And I said, no, I've already drove this far, and I had no choice but to rely on her. And we get back to the truck, and my wife's like, what's wrong? She wouldn't take the trail. I'm like, no, we got the deer. And my wife's like, holy cow, that was fast.
Yeah.
A lot of people would have just turned around. But that was one of those moments that I was being stubborn. I'm like, no, I drove this far. I'm not going home without at least trying.
Kenny Mullins and stubborn. That's funny. And a 6-month-old pup. How far was it, Kenny?
It was 400 to 500 yards, somewhere in there.
Going not too long. Yep.
Yeah.
Larry, how old is Bo?
Bo is 2.5 years old.
2.5 years old.
Yeah. And the first 2 years of his life were pretty miserable.
Oh, were they?
He was just tough. I've had a lot of dogs. He's probably the smartest, sweetest dog I've ever had, but man, he's
a bloodhound.
Yeah, he's just now kind of maturing and calming down, and now he's a good dog. I mean, but yeah, he was tough.
Well, let me ask you a question, Larry. And I know you said this is going to be your first year tracking, so you may not know this answer, but I'd like to at least hear what you think it may be. In your opinion, what's more important during a difficult track, your experience as a handler or dog's instinct?
I mean, I had to say, just with my inexperience, his instinct's going to have to be the most important.
What's your thoughts, Matt?
I think the dog, but I do think they're intertwined because you've got to have the dog. You've got to know your dog's instincts are on. But
so
I don't know if they're mutually exclusive, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but I will say that I feel like the experience as a handler is more important, because if you don't have that experience, and by experience it doesn't mean tracking a bunch of deer, it means time behind your dog and being able to move your dog.
I get that.
Because if you don't have that, you are likely going to mess your dog up, especially a young dog. But also, in those difficult situations, your dog sometimes needs your help.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense, Kenny, because a month ago, just say it was hunt season, a month ago, if I went out, we wouldn't find anything. Like, I'd just be directing them. But I think as this summer goes on, we'll have some success, just because just being able to watch him, and to your point, watch him work, watch him when he's a little bit off, and, not necessarily just steer him, drive him, joystick, whatever you want to call it. I think that's huge, just knowing when he's working, when he's not working. So, well, for a new person too, I'll say this, it's probably mostly experienced guys here, but if some new guys tune in, and I know a lot of guys say, hey, who could train my dog? Kenny comes up a lot, but you go ahead, and I could probably put some lessons learned document together for you. You better get some stuff together for you. Like, I've watched so many videos and talking to Kenny, and every time, to Kenny's point, every time I go out and I get behind him, I see something different. I'm like, oh, I ain't never seen him do this. And you kind of put it together, what he's doing and why he's doing it.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. Now that you have gained more knowledge and more experience, looking back at some of those YouTube videos you watched, how many were bad? How much bad advice did you see?
I got a fair amount of bad, and Matt, I'll say that you don't know this. I probably told Kenny this. I almost got derailed before I got started. I was reaching out, looking for help. Who can help me? And I've had people say, "Oh, that dog was too old to train. He's too old. He won't pick it up." And I'm to the point, I'm like, that's disheartening. I waited too long. So I've gotten a lot of bad advice.
Yeah, that's crucial when it comes to training, is getting the right advice. But when you're new, you don't know. So, these people, they get on there and they watch these videos, and that's why we do what we do. That's why Matt and I is on here every Tuesday night. That's why, Ralph and I started these Tuesday nights. That's why we founded the organization, is so that we could help people, through the educational aspects of the organization. And again, because there's so much bad advice out there.
And it's funny you bring that up, Kenny, because I had this very same conversation with somebody over the weekend. I can't remember if it was with Courtney after we ran that track with her, or somebody else, but we were talking about that and the training and looking for information. And when you're new, you don't know the difference between good and bad. And as you gain experience and you start talking to people that are good, and you start getting engaged with the good, you start to reflect back and say, ooh, that was bad. And I have a long list of that stuff, because when I decided to get in tracking, it was an instant compulsive disorder for me, and I was consuming as much as I could, not knowing what was bad. Well, now I do, and it's out there. And I don't think that most of it is it's just, it's bad, but it's not malicious. People
right?
just realize
they just don't know.
Just don't know. Yeah, I think that's right. But yeah,
And you tend to, I'll say, if it's a guy you found on Facebook and he's had a couple years experience, like you just take it, right? Like, hey, what he says must be true. Then I hook up, I meet Kenny and they're like, yeah, we don't really use blood. And, I have guys saying you got to drag hide and you got to have blood and you got to do all these things. I'm like, man, I don't know what to believe, so.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that's one thing I learned quickly. There's 1,000 ways to train. Which one's right? I don't know. But I know which ones I believe in now. Where I've started to come down, I think there are some bad ways if you stick with them. If you're dragging a hide, 2 years in, you're not building a good dog. That's for damn sure. But I did it. I mean,
here's what I tell everyone. Ultimately, we're training a dog to follow the scent that we want them to follow.
That's right.
And yes, people did it with just blood for years. People did it with hide drags for years, and we're successful. However, why settle for just being successful at the terms of what success was years ago, where people were satisfied with a 25% recovery rate? And again, I'm throwing out numbers, but you look at the national average now, it's much higher.
Yep.
So although, yes, you can train a dog doing that, and the dog will pick up on things like pheromones, because that's just a natural instinct. They do pick up on it, and they will learn on the job per se. But why would you not train it to get maximum results?
Yeah, that's right.
With the most efficiency. And I think that's where people misses it. Sure. I've years ago, I trained a dog on nothing but beef liver drags, and we found deer.
Yep.
But it took us 4 years to get 3 to 4 years to get where I could be at in a year.
Yep.
With proper training techniques.
It teaches. It conditions your dog to look for the easy scent, right? And it doesn't help develop the problem-solving skills that it needs when the scent is thin, when it's got a scent. You know what I mean? Because every dog, we know dogs have the instinct to track, and we know every dog can track. But the problem-solving, although natural to a point, is a developed skill, or they can get better at it. Would you agree with that, Kenny?
Yeah. And Larry, you've probably seen that in your training.
I absolutely have seen that, and that's so that's where I keep going. So yeah, if you're leg dragging or beef dragging and leaving a ton of scent all the time, 3 and 4 years in to a 3-4 year old dog, you're conditioning the dog to look for easy scent, and when the scent gets tough, those are the deer you're leaving.
Yeah,
that's how I view it anyway.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with someone the other day that was using a product that they purchased online. It comes with some kind of liquid. I'm not sure what's in it, in a tanned hide. And they're like, oh, well, I trained my dog on that, and we found deer. And I was like, yeah, you can train your dog to follow a trail with that, but let's see what happens on the difficult ones.
Yeah.
And that's where proper training is going to make a difference.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You said you feel like you get that dog's maximum potential faster just from the hoof training?
Yes. Yeah, and not just the hoof only, but it's all in the techniques of knowing when to progress, how much to progress, knowing, hey, I don't need to lay these lines and run them fresh. What's the value of letting a line lay overnight? Well, you get more contamination on that trail from other animals. It's not so much about the age. I mean, Larry, you're seeing now, Bo, Bo can smoke a 24-hour-old trail.
Yeah.
So what's the advantage of doing that is, again, you're going to have the opportunity for that dog to trash on a critter, what we call crittering. Without letting it lay that long, you may never see that sign, and you may not know how to tell when the dog is, gets off the line and is trashing on a different animal versus they're hot on the trail and going, because there is a difference. Yeah. Now you haven't seen it when it gets hot on the trail of a deer that's wounded and alive yet, because you said this is going to be your first year. But going into it, if you've seen him trash on off game, you'll know the difference. And spending that time in the woods and working those overnight trails, you're going to see it. Now he does have a pretty good leave it command. I mean, he's pretty good. We worked with him on raccoons and rabbits and all kinds of other stuff. So, but
agreed. When you tell him to leave it, he comes back. I mean, he'll walk away from it. He's good with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and just knowing that stuff builds that trust.
Right. And that was going to be my next question, Larry. With you being newer into the process and having the experience that you have, how would you tell someone new to build and maintain the trust with that dog?
I've had different type dogs, and different dogs react to a whole lot of different things. For me, this one's especially different. And I said he's challenging. He's been super great, but he doesn't react to anything negative well. He will shut down if you yell at him, if you seem frustrated, if you pop him, he's shutting down. So just that constant tell him he's doing a good job. We just play at home too. I mean, as big as he is, like I said, he's a baby. If it storms, he comes in the room and he's scared to death. So I'd say we've probably built a better relationship, not in the woods, just here at home. Just we go on walks. My boys, they play sports. They want to go run, so we'll walk with them. We do some treat stuff, sit, stay, just kind of have some fun with him, and everything's real positive with him. And even when he's wrong, it's just a no, not a pop. Some people say spray on and stuff. It's more just, hey, no, leave that alone.
Right. So, Matt, do you ever find yourself second guessing the dog? I'm sure you do. And
of course.
How do you handle that?
Well, I mentioned earlier there were 2 episodes this season that she made a damn fool of me because I didn't trust her. I was second guessing her, and she wouldn't come back. We had one of them. I'll just tell the story quickly. One of them, we had a really hard time getting started. She just didn't want to start. We were off over here. We were off over there. We were off a different direction. I wasn't convinced the deer was dead based on the information the hunter had to say, and based on the very little sign I saw. It looked like a little chunk of fat. I thought was high briskety. Just things weren't adding up. Her behavior wasn't adding up. And then about the 4th time we reset, she took a different line. I'm like, okay, this is good. This is a different line. So we kept going. And then we got to a point, she got out away from me, 150, 180 yards. And I didn't like that she was that far away. She might have been a little bit farther. And typically, at least my belief was, when she was that far ahead, she was on a hotline. She typically, in my mind, didn't work that far ahead when she was on the target dead deer side. So I'm trying to tone her back. She ain't moving. She would stop. She would come back a little bit because I could see it on my Garmin. I can't see her. She would come back a little bit, then she would stop, and then she would just linger around. And then she would start to creep back toward, and she wouldn't come. She wouldn't come. And I'm getting so upset and kind of mad about it. Finally, I looked at the hunter. I says, "Come on, let's just go over there." And she was on property that we didn't have permission yet. So I walk over there, and she's standing there looking at me she had this look on her face saying, "Hey, dummy, it's right. Look." And I look down in the snow, and there's a whole bunch of fresh blood. I'm like, that we had not seen before. There's virtually no blood before. Holy smokes. He went and got permission. We waited 15 minutes. She hung out with me. She comes back. I say, "Find it." Boom, she goes. 10 minutes later, we're standing over the deer in 1,300 yards. And, so I guess my point to all of that is, I didn't trust her until I got over there and saw that she was on it. And how when I second guess her, I'll second guess her less now based on that experience, because I had another very, very almost identical experience previous to the one I just talked about. That one was also close to 1,300 yards, where I was just an idiot, second guessed her. Nope. And I kept going back to reset, and we kept going back the way she wanted to go. Oh, guess what? The deer was over there. There was a reason she wanted to go that way. And my dumbass just wasn't having it. And, for whatever reason. But I guess what do I do when I second guess her is I reset. Is I tend to go back to, where either last known sign or where I felt she was really tracking well, I would go back and reset. And then what I've come to do too is if I feel like she's particularly squirrely, is we'll just pause when on the line, last blood, last sign, whatever, is we'll just pause. I'll get her right on the line, in essence, put her in a down stay, but we don't down, but because I didn't train that, but we'll just pause right on that line. And that has had a remarkable impact at times, where sometimes it'll calm her down and she's okay. And then she'll focus on the line, and then I can feel confident in it. But so the second guessing is becoming less and less. But when I do, my approach is typically a restart to last known sign, or where I last felt she was tracking.
Matt, you talk about setting them down and calming them down. I've had this, it's been helpful lately. Before we get started, I just make him sit, and we just kind of sit there and we talk a little bit and get him to where his blood pressure ain't so, because he is a lot of energy when I don't know, it may not make sense to some, but some it does. When I put that long lead on, it's a whole different than when that short lead's on. Like he knows we're going to do something, and he's ready to go.
Yeah. So Larry, see if you read it, if you remember, what's the first thing I said to do before in the instructions I sent home with you? What was the first thing I said to do before you went and
just a warm up session with him, just kind of building that relationship, calming him down a little bit. Yep.
Yeah. Just go for a walk and, give him some time to wind down a little bit, burn a little bit of energy, and then begin training.
Yep. We've definitely been taking advantage of that. My buddies be with me. They're like, "Are we going to start him?" Like, we'll give it a few minutes and we'll sit him down. Like, we just let him relax a little bit, because sometimes he's got so much energy at the start. That's what I was telling Kenny. We get off from the start because it's a million miles an hour,
Yeah.
Once I slow him down and, we can clearly start, it's no problem. It's still a million mile an hour after that, but he's getting exactly where he needs to go.
Yeah. It's a little little controlled. And that I still run into that last year. I'm anxious to see what it looks like going into this coming season when she's going to be 4. But our first track of the day, or if it's during the week, and I'm running it after work in the evening, and she's been in her kennel all day inside my living room, her big ass kennel. That first track or that first 10 minutes is freaking can be a bit chaotic because she's just all charged up. Even if we walk to the hit site, and I do similar to what you said, Kenny, just try to get a little bit of burn off time before, a good 100-yard walk to the hit site and stuff like that. But it does take that time to get her calmed down and get her refocused sometimes. So and that just comes with knowing your dog. There might have been my first year, I might have just said, well, it must be the deer's not dead. My dog's just being a squirrel bait. Well, that's because she's been cooped up. Now I know, just calm down, reset her or put her in that down stay and let her be right on that line, and she'll get it. But I know that now, so it doesn't bother me because I know that I know how to manage through it. But it's a challenge, man, and yeah, especially when they're young. Good Lord.
Kenny, do you still run into situations where you doubt the dog, or you're past
all the time? All the time.
Yeah.
I'm probably one of the worst at it. Especially if I'm tracking something that I shot myself. And I've told this story before, but I'm gonna share it again in case some of you haven't heard it. But this is one of my idiotic moments. I shot a deer, and I was very confident in the shot with a crossbow. I just had shoulder surgery, and the deer came in. It was about 30 yards, pretty much broadside. And I shot, and then like 20 minutes later, here comes a deer down the same trail. And I was reloaded, another buck, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to take this one. And it was a little darker. It was a little further. It came down the same trail, but then it turned in a little earlier, and I shot it, and it went a different direction. I heard it crash. So I went home, and like I said, I was pretty confident in that shot. And me and my buddy, he heard both shots, and he's like, man, you smacked it on both of them. So I was like, all right, well, these are going to be some good, easy training lines for my dog and my stubborn bloodhound. So I put him on the trail. I'm like, I told my buddy Travis, I'm like, hey, we're going to go get the one I heard fall first. So put him on the trail. He goes right to it, and we drug it back to where the stand was, just because we were completely not prepared. I didn't even have a good flashlight. I don't know why. I went home. I mean, anyways, so I reset him on the trail, that one I shot first, and he goes about 30 yards, and he turns around and goes back to the deer. And I was like, all right, this is my own fault. I shouldn't have drugged this deer back here. So I was like, all right, I'm going to push him further. So I kept pushing him. He goes like 75 yards. And then he's like, no, I'm turning around. I'm going back to that deer. And by now I was getting super frustrated. And so I pushed him down the trail even further, and he keeps looking up at me, and he is not wanting to trail. And he keeps looking up like, this is stupid. He was walking real slow. And I get to about 275 yards, and I'm looking at my Garmin, and we're doing a big loop. So I called Travis. I said, hey, man, look at that deer and tell me if it has 2 holes in it. So he looks, and he's like, no, there's only one shot. I said, check both sides. And he did. He's like, no, there's one shot. And so he keeps trailing. He goes right back around to my stand, right back to that deer. And I was frustrated. It was dark. So I just said, forget it. We'll just come back out in the morning. Maybe he'll forget about this deer and we'll be able to get it.
Yeah.
So we get back to the house and we start skinning the deer out, and it was shot twice.
Sure enough, huh?
So the dog tried telling me the whole time, and he was looking at me like I was an idiot, and I was doubting him. And yeah, he was right. But I literally, you could not tell with the hide on that I shot it twice. That's how close the holes were.
What'd you shoot it with?
Muzzy 3-blade.
Oh, arrow. Okay.
Yeah. It was a crossbow, and that's the only reason I could even tell, because you could see the 3 blades here and literally the other 3. So there were 6 slices.
Yeah.
Not that I'm that accurate. It's just luck, but
yeah,
that was one moment. And then another moment was with Travis. I'll share a couple quick ones. Travis shot this buck. It was with a bow. Just like a 15-yard shot, and the woods were wide open. And I get Buddy, the bloodhound, and we're trailing. And Buddy turns left, and Travis is adamant. Man, I watched this deer go straight. I'm telling you, I watched this deer go straight. I said, look, man, I'm not going to doubt you, but let me just let him get this out of his system. Let's see what's happening here. And he turns left and goes about 250 yards, and there was his buck.
Mm-hmm.
So another moment where, I just trusted the dog. Travis wasn't. He wasn't having it. He's been on quite a few trails with me. And then another one was I had a game warden call me. He shot a deer, and so he's like, man, I followed the blood trail, and he's like, I don't know what happened. And so this is a moment where I pushed my dog. But we're trailing, and the game warden's like, yeah, I found blood up past this point, and we're trailing. The dog's like, I should have known he kind of went into a search mode, but bloodhounds can be a little different sometimes. And if you
disagree with that,
yeah, and I pushed him, and when I pushed him, he went nose down. I'm like, all right, well. Then we went about another 75 yards, and this deer had been bleeding good. I'm like, I'm not seeing any more blood. This just isn't adding up. And about that time, he picked his head up, he turned around, and he was dragging me with that lead. He's like, I'm going back. We were, and this is stupid. This is how stupid this is. We were 5 feet from that deer.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. The game warden walked within 5 feet of that deer and swore that it kept going straight. And I had one of those bloodhounds that didn't care anything about a dead deer, but he had trailed one.
Yeah.
So, we were that close. He was like, all right, you want me to keep going? I'm going to go find something. And, that brings up another point. If you don't trust your dog and you push your dog, and your dog's telling you this deer is not dead, we're not going to get this deer, and you keep pushing it, you are likely going to push it onto some off game. I see.
Well, I was that guy. My second year, all of the trust your dog stuff, and I'd just gone through a couple of episodes that were unpleasant phone calls after my first year. When I didn't trust my dog and pulled him off too soon. So now this year, in my second year, I'm going in, I'm trusting my dog. And I've told this here on this story before too, Kenny. Just like you said, the deer took a left turn down a corn row. Baru missed it. I'm sure I was pushing her, although I thought, always tried to stay at the end of the lead, but I'm sure I pushed her. Or, she missed the 90, went into this clearing in the corn, and I followed her along, and she's like, oh, okay, Dad's with me, here we go. All the way to, just like you said with John, all the way to the road we were, as I'm trusting my dog, and the hunters come on, hey, Matt, we got the deer right here. And it was just 20 yards from where it turned down the corn row, and she went straight. And
that happens a lot,
Yeah.
Early on, and Larry, remember this because it's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Earlier on, I would beat myself up over that. Like, man,
Yep.
they found it. My dog didn't. My dog made a mistake. I beat myself up over it. But guess what? They'd have never got close enough if it wasn't for that dog.
Yeah. I threw such a little baby temper tantrum on that track, Kenny, that I wasn't going to credit the dog with the find. I wasn't going to allow any pictures to be taken because I was throwing this little temper tantrum amongst myself of how upset I was because she didn't put her nose on that deer. Well, now looking back, I contributed to it. She was young, but I contributed to it by I think pushing her, and she had that bloodhound instinct, just like you said. She's going to track something. Particularly at that age, she was going to track something. The other thing I found out with her, be aware of this too, Larry. I don't know how Bo is, if he cares about the deer or not. Baru kind of doesn't. It seems to be kind of a bloodhound thing. She wants to find it. She'll put her nose on it. She'll lick the wound, but by and large doesn't really care. But she loves to track it, loves to find it. Where the hell was I going with that? Oh, if she finds one too soon and it was too easy, she's not satisfied. She's off tracking something else because, yep, there's that. Cool. What else can I find? Because, she found it in 7 minutes on a super easy gut shot on contaminated line. So that's something that I had to be mindful of too, particularly when I went to off lead. And she's better now. She'll hang out or she'll come back to me now a little bit when she finds the deer. So it's not as much of an issue now as it was a year or two ago, but it was a problem.
Oh yeah.
They're going to track something.
Well, you want to hit some comments?
Yeah, I do want to hit some comments. Let's so let's start. And Kenny, if you see anything before Kevin Wilkie's, let's grab them. But right now, let me put up Kenny or Kevin's. What do you put at the end of the trail to let the dog know it's the end?
So on test lines, we use a piece of hide, and we do use hide some. Like when Larry came, we used hide at the end. But I'll tell you what my favorite thing to use is the upper section of the leg that you cut off when you cut the hose down. The reason I like that is it lasts longer. Hides will get nasty fast, especially in the summertime, where those upper portions of the legs, they last a lot longer.
Larry, what do you leave for Bo?
So I've been doing the same what Kenny's talking about. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but here lately I've been putting a silver bowl at the end too because he don't want to stop. Like he finds it and wants to keep going, but he's very food driven and he'll come back to that bowl. And if I got a little bit of dog food in my pocket, I'll put a little bit there, just let him eat and we chill out. But if it's just the leg there, he just kind of like he looks at it and then he's gone. So
yeah, I at the end of my lines, I put I use the cutoff of the leg like we talked about, and I also use I have liver chunks, deer liver. I save a couple a year and I chunk it all up and a bunch of it I'll turn into jerky basically, and that's what I give for treats during the season. But during my training lines, I just use raw liver. I'll put 3-4 chunks of quarter-sized chunks of raw liver in a tiny little glass jar with the holes poked in the lid, like when you kept your lightning bugs in when you were a kid, or your caterpillars. And I leave that at the end of the line, and then she has to wait for me to get there to open it and get her treat. That's what I use. She doesn't care about hide. She never really has. She'll kind of play with it, but she likes that liver. And oh my heavens to Mercatories, does she love that leg cut off? That's our game. She'll eat her liver, then she gets that leg, and then we have to play fetch with that leg all the way back to the house. That she just loves that game. Yep. But really, it's kind of a fine, and I guess this is a question, Kenny, from a pro trainer. Is really find what your dog likes, right?
Well, I can tell you what we do on every dog that comes here.
Yeah, what do you do?
Praise. Every dog loves praise.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you say they don't, you're just not acting like a 3-year-old enough.
Yeah. Make yourself look foolish. I'm really good at that because I love dogs. Let's grab Matt Lords talking about let's see. Unless it's obvious the dog's wrong, it's hard to second guess them. Mine is right a lot more than I am. Yeah, and that's true. And it takes time to get there though, man. And let me give you this full quote, okay? Because we're talking about all of this really boils down to time behind your dog. Would you agree with that, Kenny?
Yep, I was fixing to say the same thing.
You've got to be behind your dog. That is the only way to do this. Now, let me read you this quote. This is I've read part of it before, but it's applicable in many ways. It's I've talked about John Wooden before, UCLA, legendary UCLA basketball coach, and I absolutely adored him. But this is his quote, and it is completely directly applicable to this and many other things. There is no substitute for hard work. If you're looking for the easy way, if you're looking for the trick, you might get by for a while, but you will not be developing the talents that lie within you. There is simply no substitute for hard work. And that, to me, is directly applicable to working with your dog. You have got to put in the time. You have got to know what your dog looks like when it reads. You've got to not use the leg or the hide drag because you want to see that dog smoke every practice line and get that super sexy overlay on your Garmin or your Dog Tracks or your Onyx because it looks sweet in a Facebook post. That is not hard work. That's easy work. That's the trick. You might get by for a little while, but you are never going to develop the talents that lie within you or your dog or you as a team if you do not do that hard work. I feel wholly committed to that statement, and I apply that to my coaching career, and I apply that as much as I can and practical to my tracking career. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but I so wholly believe in that.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say is, I get people that ask all the time, and I'll see it online where someone will ask about a trainer, and people is like, "Oh, you need to do it yourself. It's easy, this and that." You never get out of a dog by taking a trainer what you would doing it yourself, building that bond, and I'll agree and disagree at the same time. When you start. Ralph has a saying that I use a lot now is time, value, money, and all that. When you start factoring that in, and this isn't just a sales pitch to go to a trainer, because I help a lot of people daily train their own dog without charging anything.
Yeah.
But when you start thinking about the time that it takes for someone to train their own dog versus the time that it takes for someone that does this all the time, I mean, we cut that time drastically. Just like my duck dog, I send my duck dog off for training. Can I do it? Yeah, I could do it, but I still couldn't do it in the amount of time that they can.
Yep.
And I likely won't get the same results because that's what they do every day. That's not what I do every day. And then when I start factoring how much time I'm going to have to put in, and I start putting a dollar figure on that, it makes more sense for me to send it off.
Yeah. But the difference though, go ahead. Cause I think you're going where I was going to.
Yeah. I was going to say, but I always tell everyone, we train your dog. You still have to work your dog. You still have to learn how to read your dog. We'll tell you, and I think Larry can attest to this. We'll tell you the cues and the signs that your dog will give on a trail. But honestly, most people, and Larry may have been one of them, we'll run a trail with them and we'll talk about it. We'll tell them, and it goes in this year, not this year, because they didn't fully understand. Or they were half paying attention and think that, All I got to do is follow this dog.
Yeah, and also I would say too, for a new person, and that's, you get guys say, well, you could just train him yourself. Well, I'm still trying to learn myself. Like, it'd probably be different if I was 5 years into this and I've seen a lot of things, but I'm still trying to learn. So it's hard for me to train him, and I'm learning too.
Yeah. But you're putting in the work. And so regardless of whether you take your dog to a professional trainer to shorten that learning curve in teaching the dog its job, you still are putting in the work for you to learn your dog and your dog to learn you.
Agreed.
You know, that is an unassailable truth. You have got, there's a reason they're called tracking teams, you know, and you've got to put in that work. You know, I don't discredit anybody that takes their dog to a professional trainer. That great. But if you want to fully develop the talents that lie within you as a team, to quote John Wooden, you've got to put in the work. You can't farm that work out. You can't buy experience.
If I hadn't sent Bo, then we wouldn't even be close right now, just because he's teaching me a lot. Like, going and learning from Kenny, and he's showing me some things, and, you know, giving me some confidence. But every time I go out, the dog teaches me something, honestly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's grab Frank's here. Frank Rotundi. Hi, Frank, my buddy from Port Huron. We're heading into our second season, and my major goal this summer is learning to read my dog. It's very difficult to trust your dog when you can't read your dog. That is right, Frank. If that makes sense, it absolutely makes sense. I'm very fortunate to have started training recently with an experienced tracker that is willing to help and become better. So Frank's in a great spot here because he's training. When I'm going to drop the name, he's training with Ken Jordan, one of the best experienced and well-knowledge trackers in Michigan, who, you know, a member of our network. So he's fortunate to be able to train with Ken up there, and Frank's got he's got Mika, a white-haired dachshund, and you'll meet Frank in Michigan. So Kenny,
some of the easiest dogs to read once you learn.
Once you know them, yeah. I think there's one. Go ahead,
so
Kenny.
I will give some advice. If you really want to learn how to read your dog, video your tracks.
Yep.
Video your mock tracks, and go back and watch them. You'll pick up on more doing that than you will time behind the dog.
Well, and I said it earlier to Larry, video the tracks, and I've talked about this moment too. One of the, and this is I think an obvious thing now, but this was not last summer before last, maybe it was last summer, but one of Baru's tells, or I didn't recognize necessarily in the moment running the track, but when I went back and watched film, it was blindingly obvious to me. And I built this 40-yard backtrack into the line. She walked up to the end of the line and she did a circle this way, and then she did a bigger circle this way, then to the left, then she did a circle to the right, then she did a bigger circle to the right, and then she ended up working out of it and cutting across and picking up the line. But what I picked up from that, and again, this is elementary now, but at the time it was a eureka moment for me. When I noticed her circle to the left and then circle to the right, that told me, well, when she does that on both sides, the line is right here. So I know this is the line anyway. She's just got to figure out where it went from here, because she keeps coming back to the same spot. And it was, like I said, kind of a eureka moment, but I didn't realize it or totally recognize it in the moment. It wasn't until I sat down and watched film that I'm like, hey, that was a great lesson for me. And now, lessons are fine, knowledge is fine, but it's the application of the knowledge that makes the difference. And I was able to apply that in the field a few times. I highly encourage people, even if it's carrying your phone, but video the lines.
Yeah.
I thought there was one. Is there a comment you want to grab, Kenny? I thought there was one. Let me grab Brian's here. Brian Banknell says, I'm interested in seeing what my dog does when he runs into a live wounded deer compared to the leg that left at the end of the mock track, being it's going to be his first season coming up. Brian, I'm interested in what breed your dog is. Because I think that, I think that could have an impact. And then, of course, the individual dogs themselves, their personality would have an impact. But if it's a big, heavy, powerful bloodhound, hold on to that goddamn lead, dude.
Yeah, so we have a few tricks that we do here that kind of help that, because one thing we've found is unless you build it into your training, a lot of dogs just get freaked out even when they come up to their first dead deer. So when we do some of our advanced training stuff, we build into that. We've got some 3D targets we put whole hides on and some other stuff, but I can't put it all out there here, but we got some stuff we do at our training.
He's got a Catahoula, Kenny. What's a Catahoula?
I can tell you what it's going to do.
Tell us.
Well, most of the time, especially if it's a gritty dog, you better be ready. If you're tracking on lead, you better have a hold of that thing, or not, depending on where you're tracking at. Which I know where he's tracking at, so you can cut.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. Is he on lead or off lead?
I don't know how he's going to track, but he could do either.
I don't think Brian's too far from me. Probably an hour and a half or so.
Yeah, he's not far.
Okay. All right.
Hey, can you hit Brian's comment about the hooves? I think you guys touched on this before, but I'm kind of in the same boat as him. Maybe you guys talked about roadkill. Is that option or no? Not that one. That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of talked about that before. Roadkill is an option. I know you'll hear mixed things about that. Because you may have died on impact. But at the end of the day, something's better than nothing. It's a total scent profile. And, you're still going to be teaching or training with the majority of that scent profile, even if they don't have the same pheromones. But you reach out to trackers in your area, and Larry, after you left, I was like, dang, I should have gave him some hooves, because I don't know, we probably have 600-700 here. So what's that?
So that's a lot of hooves.
Yeah, we go through a lot though.
I bet you. Training you would, sure.
Especially when it comes into the middle of summer. But the question I get a lot is, how long or how many trails can you use a hoof for? It depends on, and I've said it before, it depends on the length, the terrain, the ambient temperature, but on average, probably 6.
Yeah. So talking about the work, Wesley Bivens, when I decided to get into this and train my own dog, I had no idea how much time and walking that I was committing myself to. If you're going to do it, it is time. It's not rocket science, but it's time.
Oh yeah.
If you want to do it, if you want to do it to a certain level, I guess. Let me just put it that way, because I don't want to. I'm running him off lead. Okay, well, Brian's running his Catahoula off lead. So Megan in Oklahoma. I was about to say that, referencing a video. We video all of our lines. training or not. I learned this growing up watching rodeo film, especially having multiple dogs. It helps a lot seeing small things you may have missed in real time. I'm telling you, there's a reason why every sports team out there watches film.
Yeah.
You applied it, Megan, to rodeo. So film matters. It can have a big difference.
Yeah, and I know this is kind of off topic, but I was a competitive bowler for many years.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I bowled a lot of amateur stuff, professional stuff, and one of the biggest things that helped me get to that next level was watching videos. Videoing myself and critiquing my. I just drew a blank, but basically critiquing myself, my form. And that's how you get to the next level. I mean, it was nothing for me to get to a 200 average.
Yeah.
But to get from 200 to 220 was big, and it took videos. Then getting from 220 to 240, 230, 240, is a lot of videos. Of course, a lot of practice, but and I go back to that because I could at the I guess you'd say right when I really got competitive, I would bowl 200-300 games a week. But if all I was doing was just getting out there doing the same thing over and over again, I didn't get any better.
No.
Even if I would try to challenge myself with, different oil patterns and all that, I wasn't getting any better because I was doing the same motions over and over again, even though I was making the I guess to put it in terms like this, making the trail more difficult. I was making the oil pattern more difficult, but I was still executing it the same way. And then when I started watching those videos, that's how I got to the next level. Same thing. And then once you get to a certain level doing that, you get some sponsors, and the sponsors, they provide coaching, and again, someone else watching you, just like Larry having someone else handle his dog and him sitting back basically being like a coach and saying, oh, well, I can see this, and this. So videos are huge in everything you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to bring this, all the way back around to the topic at hand, and trusting your dog. It's hard to do. So why not utilize and leverage every tool reasonably available to you to help flatten that curve? And watching film and learning those little tendencies of your dog is going to breed confidence in your dog. And when you breed confidence in your dog, it's going to breed trust in your dog. And trust is the foundation of nearly everything. Yeah. Yeah, and Michael Vick validates it right here. I mean Michael Beck. Sorry, Michael. I just recently started recording training lines. It has shown me so much, not just with watching the dog. It shows me the mistakes that I'm making, pushing my German Shorthair Pointer off a 90. 100%. It's not just about the dog. It can show your own opportunities or validate some good stuff. Maybe it's going to show you some good stuff that you didn't realize too.
Yeah, so we'll go to Tony Hayes' comment there. What's your go-to camera? So I'll say this, most modern cell phones have great stabilization in them. So you can use a cell phone if you want to buy like an action camera. Anything GoPro Series 8 and newer has some pretty good stabilization. So you don't have to buy new. I think I'm still running I think I'm running a GoPro 11. Now, if you live where it's hot, like Florida, Georgia, maybe Alabama, some Louisiana, and it may do it other areas too, but especially video in the summertime, your GoPros have a tendency to overheat, especially if you do not turn off the GPS feature and turn off some of the other features. So when it gets hot, I rely more on the DJI Osmo camera. They do not overheat as bad.
Yeah. And I use a $50 marketplace, a Caso, A-K-A-S-O, however you pronounce it, a Caso, Queso, V50X. I don't know. It does what I need it to do. I've never had a problem with it. It records lines in good enough detail. You really need to plug a microphone into it. The internal mic super sucks on it, but as far as footage, it's good. So
yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have probably a few $1,000s worth of camera gear, but
yeah,
honestly, this iPhone right here is
yep.
phenomenal. I don't know about the Androids, but the iPhones work great.
iPhones work, Androids work better. No, in all seriousness, any phone manufacturer today has got an outstanding camera in it. Plenty.
Yeah. And the key is stabilization. Now, where you'll get into some of the differences in the cameras that you're paying money for too is that stabilization software built into it and shutter roll, which for what the average person can do, they're not going to worry too much about shutter roll till you start getting into some video editing stuff, and even then it's not that big of a deal.
Yep. Let's look at Matt Lord's comment. Kenny, can you explain how to start introducing scent gaps and scent puzzles in your training? How far starting off and how much bigger each time you progress?
So really most of that is not even for the dog. A scent gap is more about you being able to read when your dog goes into that search mode. That's really what it's about. And then you will also get to it's the word I'm looking for. Basically, your dog, if it can't work through it on its own, your dog will learn to work with you, and you help your dog get through that. And one thing I like to teach people is don't just take them right to it. Do basically a controlled search with your dog. And, even if you know where it's at, just kind of, work back and forth or some form of pattern and let the dog pick it up and watch that cue and that head snaps and it gets back on it. That's the advantage to scent gaps. Now some dogs will blow through them, and I'll tell you what, when I see that happen is when you don't let them age enough.
Yeah.
You put a scent gap in and you run that dog within 6 hours, it's probably going to blow right through it because it's going to trail that disturbed earth, broken vegetation, and dander from you. So you want to let them age, and typically we like to know on average no less than 12 hours is where you really see that dog kind of hit that wall and go into search mode. Now for like the scent puzzles and all that, again, a lot of that's handler stuff, not so much the dog. The dogs can work through it, especially like we'll lay sometimes zigzags or different patterns in a mock trail or on the test line. Most of the times the dogs will work right through it. It gets the handlers.
Yeah.
You start your dog's trailing in a straight line. All of a sudden you see this dog zigzagging back and forth. More people will pull their dog off and think their dog's wrong and try to push them in a different direction. And that's basically what it's designed for. And you can try to create scent pools and stuff like that. But again, it's still more handler stuff. And, we talk about grid searches. If you want an eye opener, I'm going to throw this out there. Go out there and grid search your track and watch your dog. Right after you have several people grid search it, go put your dog on it and see what happens. Now lay that trail, let someone grid search it right away, go back 12 hours later and work it and see what happens.
And your point to that is
it's going to open your eyes, because everyone thinks that you're tracking that deer scent all over the place, and it's going to open your eyes, and you're going to find that it's more about that disturbed earth and broken vegetation with that, and the dander that the people grid searching is putting down. It's more so about that than it is that deer scent being transferred. You're creating a giant scent challenge, just overloaded scent from the broken vegetation, disturbed earth.
Right. So the point being then that a fresh grid search is going to be harder for the dog to work through than an old grid search, because all of that disturbed earth, human scent and stuff has had more time to dissipate and is less of a factor on the dog. That's the point.
And I'm just going to be honest with you. This is something that I didn't even think about until this year, when we just started adding more stuff into our training and trying new things. And, I've been at this a long time, and I never thought to even try that.
Well, and it was validated when we had Ethan on a few weeks ago, and he talked about scent gaps and validated that very same thing. So it's coming from you as a longtime dog trainer, even though it's a newer awareness, I'll say, for you, but Ethan validated it too. So it's legitimate. Right. It's legitimate. And what I would say about, Kenny, you talked about the dogs zigzagging and stuff. To me, that the two things, I have two comments on that. One is the patience we talked about, to let that, just because a dog is zigzagging, that is not a time to panic. That's a time to go, sweet, my dog is working through it. I need to let it do it. The second thing is, even on lead people, I still recommend the Garmin or some type of collar that tracks the dog's location. So, because now you can start to see where the edge of where that dog is bouncing. And if the dog is staying in a general area and not casting itself about and going crazy, and it can't seem to get out of it, you now know how to help it, just what you said, by skirting that perimeter of the bowl of spaghetti that's just been created on your Garmin. Right. So it that stuff should never be a panic moment. It's like, okay, no problem. First of all, have the patience to try to let the dog work it out. If there comes a point by your whatever that threshold is for you, you decide it's time for you to intervene as a handler. Now you can do it in a very controlled and very methodical and systematic approach by working the edge of that bowl of spaghetti that's been created on your handheld. So again, no reason to panic for any of that. And if the scent hasn't changed, for example, it is a wounded deer, your dog in all likelihood is going to reacquire it. If your dog can't reacquire anything, that could be the point where the deer had bedded down, the scent changed, it quit emitting stress pheromone, and there's really nothing more for the dog to track, because it's a non-lethal hit potentially. But right. you can figure that out by or lend credibility to that theory by working that perimeter on your handheld. So it's just, again, trust your dog, and all of that comes from time behind your dog and having a plan and understanding what's going on and utilizing the tools available to you. And there's never reason to freak out or panic about that stuff. I love watching my dog work through problem solving.
Yep.
I love it. Boy, I'm talking a lot. Let's look at Megan's comment here. Matthew, I'm not sure if Garmin has it, but we run Pathfinder 2 and we can record the track and play it back. It's pretty neat to see how they work a line after the fact of the terrain. Yeah. I don't think Garmin has that feature as far as, but I've seen the Doctor. I know what you're talking about, Megan, or the Pathfinder. I mean, it is pretty cool. Garmin doesn't have that, but you can still use it to develop a bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, and Matt, I think you're learning this, or you have learned this through your judges training. is how much more accurate the GPS is. And also, not even, I shouldn't even say accurate as far as the line, but you could have a phone and track with Hunt Stand, Onyx, or whatever, Dog Tracks, which Dog Tracks is more of a training app than it is tracking your line out in the field. But I will say, if you have both, and even if you're on lead and you have both, and you look at the lines side by side of that collar on that dog versus that phone in your hand, it's two completely different lines.
Yeah.
You're going to see every move that dog makes, because you're not going to make every move that dog makes.
That's right.
So,
well, I would benefit. I will tell you, I have fallen passionately in love with using the Garmin as the to lay the line, record the line, and then watch the dog, because I don't give a crap where I'm at when I'm holding my phone on Dog Tracks or Onyx or Hunt Stand. That means nothing. Being able to see that dog, the actual dog against the line, that is everything to me, and I have fallen passionately in love with that.
Yeah. So Megan said, someone pitch it for the Garmin 400i before I buy the 300i.
Yeah. I tell you what, there are a couple of, as long as we're on the topic with Garmin, and Larry, feel free to chime in here, buddy. I know we're talking a lot, but there are 2 points where I think Garmin missed the boat, or perhaps it's my inability to fully grasp the capability of the Garmin. One is, I wish that you could flag where the dog is. You have your flag option, but it's marking where you are holding the receiver. I wish you could hit a button to flag where the dog is. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. We don't. Is it easy to explain quickly?
Yeah. So you just, where the dog's at, you just tap and hold down on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, you could tap a pin on it that way, can't you?
Yep.
You're right. My bad. Okay, I just exposed my ignorance. The second thing is, I wish you could save the overlay, in the Garmin of your line in the dog's track, because once you end the hunt and everything, and you can't put them back together. You can look at each one individually, but you can't put them back together. So I wish Garmin would have.
Yeah, and it shows that there's a feature doing that, but I haven't figured that out. And
I haven't either.
But I also forget about it, and I never go back and look or contact anyone about it.
Dylan just texted me and says that once you export your Garmin track, export it to the app, he says you can play it back. Now I have that. I didn't know you could play it back, Dylan, so I'm going to have to play with that. I didn't know you could actually. I know you can see it, but I didn't know you could play it, so it shows it in real time, or not real time, but shows the line.
Yeah, let's go to Tony Hayes there.
Yep.
No, the one above above that.
Oh yeah. Here we go. Yep.
Yeah, so when we tested our UBT2 recently, one of the critiques that was given by the judge was the importance of slowing down my dog when the terrain changes, fields, woods, dirt, roads. I've definitely kept that in mind in training. I guess I'd have to see the line. It's not typical advice that I give, but maybe something went on that I didn't see.
Kenny, when I read that, I had I kind of thought, man, if I try to slow him down, I'm probably going to veer him off.
Yeah, and some dogs you can. Honestly, that's something. I'm not saying that person was wrong, because I wasn't there, but that's just not something that I worry about too much. But maybe there was something with that dog that I don't realize. I am all, especially if I'm on lead, I am all about slowing a dog down, but it's not so much at different terrain changes as it is all the time. I want to train a dog to track at my pace.
Yeah. I would be interested in that context too, because I thought, that the terrain difference made me I don't want to say raise an eyebrow, but it caught my attention too. That's interesting.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious as to, hearing more about that. So Tony, if you don't mind messaging me, maybe I'll learn something from it.
Yeah. Please share, Kenny, when you do. Larry, do you have a Garmin or anything?
It's on the list. I'm going to get it. I was kind of deciding which one I need to get. I see a lot of
I get it, man.
out there, and I'd hate for it to be like the shoes, and I buy it, and then the next week somebody says, "Oh, you should have got this one."
Well, so are you planning to track off lead?
I'll probably have to come down and get you to help me with some of that. I'd like to, but I don't know that I'm.
Don't rush it. Do it when you're ready. But if you can do it, I'll say it again. I'll use my favorite phrase. It's liberating.
That's just a whole nother level of confidence I'll have to gain.
Yeah, don't force it and be sure you're ready. Kenny will know when you're ready. Go ahead, Kenny.
The dog's ready.
The dog's ready, of course.
Yeah, but no, I do intend on buying something here in the near future, and then I was planning to reach out to you and see how we need to go.
I'll just put it out there for anyone that's listening. I strongly recommend a Garmin 300.
I love mine.
I know it's the more pricey option, but keep in mind you buy a used Alpha 100. Garmin no longer supports them, so there's not going to be any updates, and you might be able to find trade in, get some refurbished now, but eventually that's going to run out. And you can get the Alpha 10. I would recommend the Alpha 10 for someone who plans to track on lead and just wants a device for an emergency situation. I think Alpha 10 would be a good option for that.
Yeah.
And it is budget friendly, which if I was strictly tracking on lead, that's probably what I would do. Because you still have that recall option with the collar. You just don't have the map screen to look at, and you can use the app on your phone. But if you're going to track off lead, the Garmin 300 is the way to go. And as far as the eye feature, most people, Larry, especially in Georgia, you're not going to use the inReach feature. Maybe if you were out west where, different areas, you might would use it, but most people is not going to use the inReach service.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I just got the standard 300. Yeah. And I will tell you, before I had my Garmin, I was using a Sport Dog, whatever, it's right here, 2.0, I think, because I found it. My dog got loose on lead, and I didn't have a way to know where she was, and that scared the living hell out of me, and I got very lucky. So I bought mid-season, took some of my tracking money and, the tips and donations and bought the cheap one I could find. It was $400, and it did the trick. I was on lead, and it was just if she got off, I knew where she was. And then I started, when I went off lead, that's what I had. And I started with that, but then the tone button quit working. And I talked to a friend of mine, fellow tracker, and he said, it was mid-season, so I had a fair amount of tips and stuff stacked up. He says, just get to 300. You're going to be comfortable with it. You're not going to be comfortable until you do. Just get it. And I did, and he was 100% right. And I never looked back. That 300. I will tell you, I hated it at first because I didn't have an off season to get used to it. I was used to my old clunky cheap one, and it took some getting used to. But once you're used to it and you understand those features, it was the greatest tracking money I spent.
It sounds like we need to have a live stream on tracking systems. So we need to get someone on that has the Pathfinder experience.
Yep.
So, I don't have a lot of experience with that. So it sounds like maybe Megan needs to hop on.
No, she will. I've had her on my podcast. So Megan, you're coming on.
And then we can talk
I'll
about Garmin and talk about different features. And while we're at it, let's go up to where's it at? Matt Lord's comment. I can run Onyx, dog tracks, and Garmin, and they'll all be different. And we actually went into this. And let me see if I can pull it up. And I'll explain the reason why. Matt, do you remember? Was that in the committee chat?
It was in the committee chat. Yeah.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Because I'm not going to remember right now. I'm a little tired.
Oh, yeah. I meant to preface that at the beginning, guys. Forgive Kenny if he's a little cranky today. He lost a great big fish on the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hit a turkey. I had a bad day too, Kenny, so don't feel like the lone stranger. But I didn't lose.
Did a little turkey hunting?
No, I hit a turkey with my car. Yeah, I did. With my Toyota 4Runner. And I ain't happy about it.
Yeah, so this is kind of a kind of short answer, but this is what I was telling them as we've seen an issue going on. I just said the Garmin is far more accurate as it constantly communicating to the satellites, not just receiving. A phone utilizes receiving signals from 4 satellites and triangulation of cell towers. When you have satellite obstruction and weak cell signal from any of the 4 towers, it's not accurate because it's updating points less frequently. So, and actually, when we were talking about all this, I showed a demonstration where I was literally sitting in a chair and you could see my phone was mapping out a line.
Yep.
And in 2 minutes, it mapped out 13 yards, 12.98 yards to be exact. So, and there's other things that can affect the GPS, but the GPS is definitely going to be more accurate. The other side of that is if you're laying lines using dog tracks, Onyx, Hunt Stand, any of that stuff, due to how it utilizes cell towers as well as satellite and uses the triangulation, it's constantly putting points. And if you stand still like you're making a wound bed or you walk slower, it just updates those points as you're standing still. So it's going to add yardage. So a lot of times you'll see where your phone will record a longer yardage than your GPS, and that's the reason why.
Yeah. I've had one time where my dog tracks was longer than or shorter than my Garmin, but every other time it's noticeably longer than my Garmin. So in the judge's world, you got to be careful about that. You know, to maintain test standard lines. But lot of comments coming in. I agree. Alpha 300 and the Alpha XL and truck is great for looking at tracks afterwards. Michael Beck, I have a love-hate relationship with the 300. Don't tell anyone, but I'm starting to love it. Secret's out, Mike. Megan says, heck yeah, she'd love to come on. Megan, you are going to be the resident expert for the dog trust system. So do your studying.
Yeah. Well, Larry, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah.
No, not currently. I probably asked enough questions to you privately.
And let me tell you, I know there's some people out there that I haven't gotten back to that on some training stuff. I promise I haven't forgotten, and I will get back to them. I can't tell you how many messages I get a day, phone calls, text, on average, probably 80, 90 text messages a day. I don't even know how many phone calls. And that's not counting social media messages. So I am a little backed up, but I will get caught up.
I'm responsible for some of that because I keep telling my friend, you know what, talk to Kenny about that. I'm really guarded on what kind of training advice I give or stuff like that. A little bit I will, but
No, and it may take me a while, but I will get to you. I'm starting to get caught up, and just like tracking calls, I kind of prioritize focus on some of it. Like one person I'm helping, they're preparing for some UBT testing, and quite frankly, their dog was nowhere near ready. And I'm not talking crap about the person or the dog, because they came to me because they knew that the dog wasn't ready. So with them kind of being on a time crunch, I made that a priority. And again, like I said, I will get back to you. So Larry, this, you said this is going to be your first year tracking. Where will you be tracking at?
I live in Harris County. I don't know, probably for you guys not familiar with Georgia, if you've heard of Callaway Gardens or Columbus, Georgia. I'm really close to there. So,
yeah. Is that South Georgia, East, West, North, South, Central?
No, we're West Georgia, kind of central. So I'm probably an hour from Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, Coda, you know where Canton, Georgia is?
Yeah, I believe that's north of me. If I believe
it is.
Yeah.
So you got Coda to the north of you, and then I'm trying to think of who else is around there, kind of the south, maybe Lyle. I don't know how far Lyle is from you, but there's some trackers there. So if you do need hooves, reach out to them. And then get on the Georgia page when it comes time, when we start advertising, and we'll get you set up with a mentor near you that you can rely on there for help throughout season.
Yep.
So
cool. Well, yeah, I think we're there, man, to 221. So Larry, really appreciate you coming on, and in all sincerity, man, that video that Kenny got is going to offer a lot of opportunity for people to learn. It did for me, and I just watched it with Kenny sharing it on a stream like this. So it's going to become part of a curriculum and seminar curriculums at times and stuff. So good stuff, and thank you for that. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your experience too. I mean, it's a validation that for newer handlers that trusting your dog is really, really hard. Really hard. So hopefully there's some things that people could glean today on tips and tricks, and if nothing more, just understanding that there is no trick, there is no easy way. You've got to put in the work. And
one of the biggest takeaways I want to say is Larry wasn't afraid to ask for help.
That's right.
Yeah. And then, being willing to come on here and admit that you had some struggles and shared those, it's going to help someone else out there.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. If you get new guys in here, they just got to come in saying, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can find somebody to help me.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and that's what's going to make you a good team. The willingness to, first reaching out, then the willingness to accept it, and then apply it. You do those three things, you're gonna be a good team, man. As long as you put in the work.
That's right.
So good stuff. So Bob Quinn, I did see your message, man. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So I think we're there. Everybody, thanks for the questions. Thanks for the engagement. Larry, thanks for coming on. Kenny, thanks for giving me the opportunity to be part of the ABA. We're doing some great things. It's just there's a whole, I say it every week, but there's a lot of good stuff going on. I'm thrilled to start administering some tests now that I've got earned my judging status. Thank you for helping guide through that process, and still looking for mentorship through it, but good stuff. So anyway, guys, next week we are talking about off lead. It's going to be a little bit of a forum. We got three guests are going to come on. one of them that struggled with the off lead, and Perry, we've talked about it before. Then a couple of guys who have been very successful transitioning from off lead from Michigan, as we were on lead and we are now off lead. So it's going to be a little bit of a forum. It'll be fun stuff. So
and then the week after that, we'll go right into the tracking systems, which you tie right into it. So
yeah, absolutely. So be thinking about that the week of May, whatever that is, that first Tuesday in May is what that will be. So good stuff, guys. I think we're there. Larry, go ahead and hang on with us for a minute when we stop. But more of the good, less of the bad, guys. Till Tuesday. Talk to you soon.